If we're talking about blog posts, podcasts, or mini skirts.
Yeah, I don't know. Just when I started watching YouTube and like I started seeing like these 4 or 5 hour long streams, I'm like, who has time for any of that at all? So that's when I said, 40 minutes to an hour. Although, Dr. Khalil Andani,
Doesn't sound familiar.
he is a Somali Muslim or a Smiley Muslim who debated Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, on the Thought Adventure podcast. But anytime I've ever done anything like concerning him, a debate review, or had him on, my partner who comes on periodically, Vin and Sori, made it go 5 hours. I was in excruciating agony.
Oh yeah, I hear you.
All
Yeah.
right, for anyone who tunes in to this a little bit later, this is different time than when I normally stream. We are good though either way. Um, Arn, I know you made a comment, something that I thought was kind of. I've only heard the apostate prophet make this, and a lot of times when people are talking about Islam, they'll often then try to mention Christianity. But a lot of times you'll be like, no, 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 let's like Christianity. I'll address Christianity here. I'm going to address Islam here. Why do you think people try to mention the two together so much?
I've wondered about that, and I think it's because of the weaknesses that Islam has, and they don't want to talk about the weaknesses specifically of Islam. They want allies, so they want to try to get the Christians and the Muslims together against the unbeliever, because both the Bible and the Quran, both of them, say that you should kill the infidel on the word of 2 or 3 witnesses.
Yeah, I'm often asked too, a lot of times by different people, why I engage in these conversations, and a part of it is apostasy laws. Me as a Christian who's not willing to pay the jizya or to submit to Islam is under just as big of a death sentence as you, an atheist in an Islamic country.
I see we both have dogs. That's adorable.
Yeah, they were supposed to be out playing, but that is not happening at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. But yeah, like so, um, I noticed when you were talking to. This has been a while back, so you might not remember because you've done a lot of these. There's the Quranic Bible studies. You brought some Muslims on to engage. Um, how do you feel they responded to your objections, or do you feel like they kind of brushed off some of your views or perspectives? Because you've had this a few times where you've brought Muslim guests onto the study.
Well, what I've noticed is that believers seem to realize that faith is indefensible. And so all they can do is do the tu quo qui fallacy of you're just as bad, by pretending that any position on anything is a faith. So, regardless why you hold the position you do, they're going to call it religion. They're going to call it a belief. They're going to call it faith. And that way they think that they projected their indefensible problem onto you, and now science is indefensible too. Or they try to cast science as a religion. They want to say scientism or whatever, and then there's all these other assumptions that go into that. But one of the other things that they try to accuse often is bias. Now, they don't understand that the reason we are atheists, especially in the United States, where almost everybody was raised to be Christian, the vast majority of our parents tried to raise us up to be Christian, and many of us were Christian. I mean, at American Atheists and other organizations, many of our public speakers were at one point. They had dedicated their lives to being ministers, missionaries, seminary students, and so forth before they came away from their faith, because there was a point when they realized that the truth mattered, and things that where they thought the truth would be turned out not to be any truth there, and that was a problem. That was the problem for me. I was perfectly happy to believe in God and souls and all of that, but I couldn't verify that any of it was true. And if I can't show the truth of it, why do we believe it? And so that's the problem I had. I don't want to believe things for which there's no indication that it's even correct, especially when we have all these people who are professing to be authorities in this denomination or that one, and they're all contesting each other, and each one is saying that all of the others are absolutely wrong, but there's no way to know who's right. And even if you use the Bible, which many theologians just flat out don't, even if you use the Bible, you can't ever get somebody to understand. Somebody can be covered in Christian tattoos and not understand that the Bible says, and not care that the Bible says that that is an abomination. So you can't even use something as clear and unambiguous as that to disprove somebody. They simply they only listen to the parts of the Bible that they think agree with them and reject everything else. They do the same with science. It's all confirmation bias. So there's no way to know who's right or wrong about any. It just turns out that the best assumption is that everybody's wrong to at least some degree. And then try to figure out where the errors are. And don't declare anything to be true until or unless you can show the truth of it, being the evidence and the reason behind that conclusion.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to land on the fact that I'm not infallible. I'm prone to make errors and I'm prone to make mistakes. Like on the issue of tattooing, for example, you mentioned, I take the Christian position that was just tied to the Levitical priest tradition and not necessarily prescriptive to all of Christians. But like you said, there are Christians who would disagree with me on that, on the tattoo issue.
And then Jesus said that he came to fulfill the law and that we must follow every jot and tittle of all those old Jewish laws, lest ye be called least in heaven. So I could only interpret that all those Jewish laws are supposed to apply to Christians too. Except, of course, Jesus contradicted himself quite often when he said that, of course you can work on the Sabbath, if something needs be done, if your cow falls into a creek on the Sabbath, you're going to have to do some work to get the cow out of the creek. So there are exceptions to that. And then according to the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus also spoke out against circumcision, saying that if God meant for people to be circumcised, we would be born without foreskins, that sort of thing.
Yep, I'm just going through, checking the audio, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I forget to unmute myself, and then I'm like talking to dead air.
Yeah, I haven't noticed that yet today, and I keep forgetting to mute myself, knowing that my dog will suddenly explode at some point in almost any interview.
Yeah, last time we were talking, your dog had just knocked over some paint cans in the house, and it tracked them through. If you can remember when that was.
Yeah, I would have completely forgotten about that. Thanks for that memory.
Yeah, that was the last time I had you on. You were coming on, and you were like,
oh, and they ran across I remember this now. They ran across the couch. And it was when I put up, I painted a whole wall with green screen, and they ran across the couch, and I had lime green doggy prints all over my sofa. Yeah,
that's a mess. Either that or you let them dry and you call it modern day art, right?
Yeah.
So as in prepping for this, I was going back and I was watching a discussion you had, Daniel Hikachu. I talked to him once before, but it was very short. Sorry, now my kids are going out. Why do you think it is that he is such a shock jock for Islam? Why do you think it is that he just affirms this, like child marriage, sex slavery? Like, why do you think he doubles down on this? But when I talk to other Muslims, they completely say this is not the case.
There are, as you put it, shock jocks. There are internet trolls. There are people who want to sell the outrage because, and they've got a point in one sense, because I notice when I could spend 2 weeks working on a a science video. I do a lot of videos on phylogeny, and those can just editing those, because there's so many visual references, and if they involve video, well, now it takes so much longer, because finding the right clip of video for this or that scene, it is a very tedious process. It could take, and when I say all day, I mean my entire day, from the moment I wake up until I can no longer stay awake. So we're not talking 8 hours a day, we're talking 12, 14, 16 hours. I could take 3 days like that. And I just did. I spent 3 days just editing the video. That's not even including just, scripting it and doing the research and composition of it, because there's a lot of information. How do you convey it? Which way do I want to go with this? How much do I need to include? Putting together these science videos requires an awful lot of work. And then the views that they get, surprisingly low. I mean, I got a cult following. There are a whole lot of people that really love that type of content. They want the scientific content, but the vast majority of people want the drama. And so what I see is, if I just turn a camera on myself and do nothing, right? I don't do any editing, or I don't do any scripting. I just turn my camera on and rant. Or if I have an argument with somebody on the street, that will blow up. The views on that will be far more than anything else, anything that I've tried to compose, anything that I put labor into. So I don't get that. Talking head things like what we're doing, they don't get a lot of views either. But the things that really, really sell, just turn a camera on yourself and rant. Or two people in a live confrontation on the street, and that will pick up all the views. Yeah, so arguing with street preachers is a great one. If you want to get a bunch of cheap views you didn't have to work for, just find a street preacher and record an argument with them, and that'll sell. I don't like that that's the case, but there are people who base their careers off of that. Look at Ray Comfort. That guy makes $4 million or so. He lives in this mansion, a two-story mansion in Malibu. And all he does, he goes out to the beach every day and says the same stupid shit all the time. But he records it. That's how his videos are made.
Yeah, I've thought, like, what would be beneficial, and then to what you're saying, like, people like the drama. So it's, how do you combine the drama, but in a way of something that's going to be educational, or something that's going to mean something? Because I haven't found that. I mean, YouTube channels growing a bit, but I haven't found that perfect mix of, because I don't think I'm the overly confrontational guy. I think if I were, like you said, people want that, but I'm more reserved. I'm more held back. I'm more like, I want to actually hear what the other person says and take it in, and not just like, okay, this guy's insulting me, so now I'm going to throw fists.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have been cast as the confrontational guy. I fully accept that I'm the type of personality I am on the web is I'm a bulldog. But the advantage that I have is I'm advocating for science. I'm not the shock jock. There's a whole lot of people that are the confrontational type, like I am, but what they're bringing is shock value. They're bringing controversy and exploding that, and that's what both sides of this issue are. When you have people like Hikachu, who wants to say controversial things that even the other Muslims disagree with, and then you have, like, the Christians come forth with flat Earth belief. Well, Muslims do that too, but when they start any kind of reality denial, that becomes controversial. So when you deny the moon landing, you deny the Holocaust, whatever, then you get to 9/11 conspiracy theorists, all of that kind of stuff. All of that makes you feel special, and all of it makes you controversial. And now you get to pretend as if you've got a valid argument against the experts in the elite towers. And that's I know people. I have close family who are of that kind of mindset. They don't actually understand anything, but if they question, say that they question whatever, whatever they're taught in school, whatever the mainstream scientific consensus is. If they challenge that, they think that makes them look smart.
Yeah, when I get into these conversations with Muslims and we start talking about science, and there's all kinds of video clips that we have over on this other channel, Seeking Truth, that has like Muslims just outright rejecting the scientific miracles in the Quran now. Like they say it's debunked, it's not usable anymore. Muslim metaphysician says this. Ali Dawa, one of the top like 3 Muslim YouTube channels for size now. But I still get this. It's a scientific miracle. And then I read things like the sperm comes from the center back.
Yeah, and between the backbone and the ribs.
Or the sun rising over a muddy spring and them saying that's all metaphorical. But yet when I read the Quran,
and that the sun and the moon are both in tracks on across the firmament, and the firmament is a solid dome, and that the stars are just lamps nestled in the firmament that angels can then take out of the firmament and use as projectile weapons against demons or genies when the genies get too close to God's hotel at the height of this expanse. It's all absolutely absurd, but of course they interpret it literally, but don't interpret it literally. They say they interpret literally until they come to uncomfortable moments like that, when then they say then that it becomes metaphorical. But you can't defend the angels using a star as a projectile against a genie. There's no metaphorical justification for that. So they just slide right past it. I was in a debate with a Muslim who just refused to discuss whether the stars are lamps. He wouldn't touch it. He wouldn't give a yes or no answer on that.
Yeah, just thinking out loud, I don't know if that surprises me too much, because when I talk to Muslims, they're very particular about Islam is to submit. Like once you're there, you just submit to it. This is what Muhammad said. There is no questioning. I've heard the term, there is no reason, there is no logic. And I get it that like everybody's got people on their fields who are just don't question anything. I never grew up with that mindset. Like I think asking questions, will make you smarter. Like if somebody tells you to go walk over the cliff, you should ask, like, is there something to catch me? Like, why are you doing this? Like, you wouldn't just walk towards the cliff. But I find that in these conversations, a lot of people have that mentality. Like just pointing them going.
That's one of the reasons I liked the 1981 movie Conan the Barbarian. Thulsa Doom points out what is the riddle of steel, right? Yeah, the flesh is stronger than steel because if you manipulate the mind, you control people, it's more powerful than steel. And his demonstration of that is to wave to one of his devotees up on a cliff. He says, "Come to me, darling, come to me." And she steps off the cliff willingly, smashes herself to death on the floor, as you do. And then he turns to Conan and says, "That is strength, boy. That is power." I'm like, yeah, that's the power of religion. It's entirely autodeceptive and manipulative.
Yeah, I'm just going through my notes, making sure we keep hitting these. So I don't know if anybody mentioned this, but that debate you had with Jake, the Muslim metaphysician?
Yeah.
We had actually messaged the guy from Modern Day Debate, James, who seems like a really nice guy. And we told him that he placed Jake's mic facing away from him instead of towards him. And if he would have just flipped it, all that echo would have been gone during the whole entire of the debate.
Yeah, there were a number of issues with that. You've noticed that I was wearing sunglasses in that, and I got some criticism in the comments. But again, it was because the way the lights were put on. I had an LED lamp stabbing into my eyes while I'm trying to read notes off my laptop. I couldn't even see my laptop without the shades.
That's not good. And the shades probably still make it harder to see your screen too a bit.
It wasn't ideal, but it's fine. I look cooler with shades on anyway, so we'll do that.
So, what was your takeaway from the debate with Jake?
It was exactly what I predicted it would be. It was a word game. It was an adaptation of Jake's argument was yet another adaptation of the Kalam cosmological argument, wherein the premises, however many there are, that he chose to use. I can't remember how many he had. He had a lot more than just two, but where the premises are not necessarily true, and the conclusion is a complete non sequitur. Wouldn't matter if the premises were true. The conclusion is still has nothing that doesn't follow. So I wish that I had just explained it that way, because I know that that's what he wanted, but part of it was based on a misdefinition that I clarified over and over again. We got lost in that, trying to get him to understand the definition that while many things may be true that are not yet known, we can't call them truth until we know them. And so he's trying to argue that nothing can be true unless it is truth, and nothing can be truth unless there is a mind to know it. So a mind had to know it before it was truth. So a mind had to create the universe in order for anything to be the truth. And this is completely philosophically invalid. And Matt Dillahunty got up and read a philosophical definition of truth to disprove Jake's claim, that on which his entire argument was based. And he couldn't accept it. Because everything was based on that premise that for a thing to be true, it must be truth requiring a prior mind. And if the definition, even in philosophy, of truth, which was what I was giving, if it means that we can't call it truth until we know that it is, until we can show the truth of it, which was my argument. Well, if you take the correct definition as Matt provided, then his whole argument falls apart. You've got nothing. And the thing is these guys walk into these debates knowing they've got nothing. They've got to do a misdefinition. It's got to be some stupid word game. Like when I brought up the tap people, that they were trying. They described, when they wanted me to agree to a necessary being, they actually clarified that by their definition, the being didn't have to be a being. They said it could be anything at all. Like, even dead, unconscious material could be considered a being. And I said, okay, fine, we'll just go with dead, unconscious material then. So and I knew where they were going with this, and I knew what the problem was going to be. So if I say that matter cannot be created or destroyed, and therefore, by their definition, if it had to always exist, and in a universe where we have something, and something can't come from nothing, and atheists don't believe that everything came from nothing anyway, it's the creationists who believe that, then if the singularity was already an encapsulation of matter and energy and other things, then by necessity, there must have been material energy. So I say, okay, well then in this case, in this particular universe, there, by your definition, dead unconscious material, which they then go, aha, you've just admitted to our our immaterial living consciousness. And they did. They used those words even. So everything opposite of what I said. And I knew how ridiculous that was going to be.
I went ahead and pulled that up. I figured just so they could hear just a small portion of that exchange. I put that up because I thought it was very good back and forth.
But I'll make it quick. The topic isn't, can I frame a question that Aron can't answer, or what doesn't Aron know? It's, is the evidence for or against God? So for clarity, features of reality are the actual. They are not true. Sentences express a concept. Neither the sentence nor the concept is true. Truth exists only in the comparison or evaluation between the actual and the concept. Your concept of the sentence 2 + 2 = 5 might not match another person's concept of that statement. If the concept accurately represents the actual, we evaluate that as true. As a truth seeker, I seek accurate concepts about the actual. I'm seeking to gain concepts of reality that evaluate as true. The facts of reality aren't truth. They are the actual. And truth doesn't exist, in quotes, until there's a concept for comparison. The measure of truth or how the concept compares to the actual facts. So your previous attempt is to claim that truth exists without a concept. But now that I've actually rejected that, no concept, no statement, the truth exists only in the comparison between the two of them, I will rephrase the question you were asked multiple times during the debate. What is the objectively verifiable fact that confirms the God concept that you expressed is actually correct?
Yeah, so you misrepresented me when you said that I think that truths can exist apart from concepts. No, in fact, what I argued is that truths are mental entities. So I don't know why, maybe it was because we got bogged down in other parts of stuff. But it seemed like you didn't understand that. I'm sorry that you're upset, sir. I don't know. I said I'm just not a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
I thought that was a fair objection to Jake's opening argument and point, because I've often asked myself in these conversations, I know that like you can make a philosophical argument valid and sound, but if you're making a philosophical argument tied to some kind of empirical data, then you should have something empirical that you can substantiate to make the premises true.
Yeah.
You think
so
that's kind of what he was shining?
Yeah, but the point of the debate, the topic was debate, was that is there evidence of God? And logical fallacy, which is all Jake brought, is not evidence. So, I mean, even if you want to include and conflate evidence with logically valid arguments, that's not a logically valid argument. It's invalid for multiple reasons. You know, because there's erroneous assumptions involved. Truth is when he says truth, and he's actually referring to things that that may eventually turn out to be true, but we don't know currently are true. Maybe things that we haven't even imagined yet that we may at some point discover to be true. He wants to say that they are already currently truths, and that truths are mental entities requiring a mind, so that nothing can ever be true or found to be true or discovered or observed unless there's a God. That is a circular reasoning of the question begging fallacy. I've often said that every logical fallacy has been used as an argument for God, and every argument for God is a logical fallacy, and Jake and others of his ilk demonstrate that.
So yeah, because when I picture his argument, like let's say we just picture a world where it's just a single individual within a room and there's a single rock. Now, if that person dies, I can understand that the concept of the rock, maybe the description of the rock, maybe any thoughts concerning the rock from the humanist argument would be gone. But I think you could still argue that whatever was being described, that rock is still there. I've never gotten this to where it necessitates that the rock has to be some kind of mental state.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other argument about the necessary being, it's just as empty. If by their definition, and I got a contradiction from them too, by the way, which was funny. When one of them criticized me for that I had confirmed a mental entity, and my problem with that is I want to clarify, because if somebody saw the debate and remembers it differently than I'm describing, they wanted me to speak authoritatively on cosmogony. I am not I'm not an astrophysicist, and so if they and it wouldn't matter what I believe. And then they're talking about they said we don't care what the experts say. We want to know what you say. My uneducated opinion will not change reality. So I had just recently or previously interviewed Sean Carroll, and Sean Carroll, who is an astrophysicist, said that there could just as well. I mean, there could have been nothing in the universe, and we could have something in the universe. Doesn't matter. Of course, if you have a universe that has something in it, then there must have been something in it logically to begin with. But he's saying that there could have been nothing, in which case it would still be nothing now. But when they want me to speak authoritatively on something that's completely outside my field, then I have to say, well, this is what the expert says. It doesn't matter what my uneducated opinion is. And they said, but you already said that you believe that matter is necessary by our definition. Okay, fine. I said that matter is necessary by your definition. Somebody else comes in and says that necessarily makes it a being. That makes it an intelligence. It can't be dead, unconscious material. And I said, but then by your redefinition, then I haven't assumed that, because they clarified it didn't have to be a being. It could have been anything. It could have been dirt, and they would have accepted it as God. And so if you're going to redefine it now that it can't be dead, unconscious material, then I didn't accept a necessary being like you said I did. And then the conversation was abruptly ended. The guy disproved himself.
Now, you and I have talked about this in the past a little bit, because for me, I could not imagine now believing that a God doesn't exist. Like I couldn't fathom me in that position. What would you say to somebody like me who's got this mind state where I just don't see any reason that I could reject God now?
I'm in even though I believed in God once upon a time, I am now in a mindset where I can't imagine assuming a God. Now, I can understand being duped, because the reason I believed in God was because people I respected, as a child, told me there's a God. And I lost a lot of respect for them when I realized that they lied to me.
So
They told me that God was a conclusively proven scientific fact, that everybody knows that there's a God, that even atheists believe that there's a God. They just say that they don't believe that so that they can sin, and all of those statements are lies. When William Lane Craig said that when someone rejects Christ, it is not because of evidence, but it's because they love darkness more than light. Bullshit. Not only is that not true of everyone, like he said it was, that's not true of anyone. That's never been true of anyone ever. And he says it's true of he says that's true of everybody. No, it's not. Never has been. So God is literally not even a possibility to consider. God is something that we made up because we are pattern-seeking animals who are very self-centered, because we're social animals and it matters what we do. When we think nobody's looking, it might turn out that somebody's looking, so we still got to be careful about what we do. Right? And so we also have this impression that somebody might be watching us, which might lead to the conclusion that somebody is watching us always, all the time. And not only can they see what we're doing, they can also hear what we're thinking. It's been common for people to assume that as well, because they think that thoughts manifest actions and that you can think things into being. Nobody's ever demonstrated anything like that. It's just people just imagine shit. I imagine things in my dreams, and the fact that we dream has led to an awful lot of religion. People dream shit up and then think that's the spirits talking to them. That sort of nonsense, that they think they're having, I don't know, past life remembrance or whatever, that there's communication from some other world coming through to them. And they imagine that somebody's watching and listening to everything that they say. And so if you think something, that somebody will hear it. And it's just these little defects that we have in our psychiatry that cause some people to assume this impossible being that never existed in any sense. And the evidence that it doesn't exist is, I think, too vast to be ignored forever. There is the fact that nature is, as has been described, red in tooth and claw. Nature is horrific. The real world is terrifying. When you look at just any people go out on the nature trails, like into Kruger National Park or whatever, and they come back with videos of disemboweled deer walking around. They eventually die, but they've beaten down the predator or whatever. They've just sustained mortal injuries from it. There's no way getting out of that. Sure, the wildebeest got away from the crocodile, but now he has a twisted foot that he can't use, and that means it's going to die because there's no medical care. You see the lion who was 500 pounds in his youth, and he's 120 pounds now, and on death's door because there's no care for the elderly either. He's starving to death, and that's what's going to happen, because that's what happens to all of us in the world of nature. And it's been going on like that for billions of years. There's no justification for it. There's no, the Christians always want to argue that morality is the big, that seems to be their big deal. They want two things. They want either purpose, we're here for a purpose, and somehow God's supposed to install or instill morality. Neither of which is evident at all. So as far as the purpose, what's the purpose? The purpose is so that we can die as pawns at a game that God plays both sides of the chessboard. And then when we die, we end up having to kiss the ass of an inexplicably insecure tyrant for all eternity. That's your purpose? Really? That's pretty horrible. To me, it seems that there is no externally imposed purpose. If you want your life to mean something, then you have to figure out what that's going to be and go work to that end. And I have said that if you want your life to mean something, try making someone else's life meaningful. And then as far as morality, we are moral because we're a social animal. We depend on society. No man is an island. We need other people to care about us. And there's certain ways that we have to get about working with and live cohabitating with other people. And society itself also depends on us cohabitating productively. So there's certain conducts that we have to follow. We have to respect other people's rights. We have to show some degree of empathy, and structurally we do. With the advantage that we have over chimpanzees is that we have more efficient mirror neurons, or whatever is involved in our ability to show more compassion for ourselves than other apes do. Like, chimpanzees will cooperate as long as they see a personal interest in it. But when there is no, when their personal interest isn't strong enough, they just give up. I've seen experiments like this. Whereas children, even human children, even as toddlers, will see an old man struggling to do something, and if they can, they will help him, just instinctually. So that's what we do, and that's actually what made us the most powerful species on the planet. It wasn't our intellect, because it was a time when we didn't have the strength that the other apes had, and we only had the intellect that the other apes had. We didn't have, our superior thinking abilities yet, but what we did have was a greater degree of compassion for our family, friends, and fellows than any other animal. When a predator charges into a herd of wildebeest or whatever, they will chase down and get the slowest or the weakest or whatever. They'll single that one out, and everyone else runs away. Safety in numbers. Cape buffalo are a little bit more protective. The lions may grab the one baby buffalo and they think they've got it and they're going to kill it, and then all 75 or 80 of those Cape buffalo have returned for their child. And then what are the lions going to do? Oh crap, we've angered a whole bunch of buffalo. That's humans. You have a Dinofelis attacks a bunch of Australopiths, for example, and everybody runs, and if we can't all of us get away, if running away means that one of their children gets eaten, no, parents stand between the cat and the child. And that means that the siblings and the spouses, they all stand between the cat and the child. Now, any predator like that could have taken down any one of us. None of them can take all of us. That was
And
our
then,
strength.
if you
And
don't
that's
mind,
where morality comes from.
saying if you don't mind, I have one more quick question for you, and then I'll let you
Sure.
go and do some housekeeping. You had mentioned that you felt like lied to. Do you
Yeah.
believe like it was they were intentionally lying to you, or do you believe it was they were just conveying like a sincerely held belief that was not true?
It's both. Because when you get into when you get it, I've often said that when I get to argue with creationists, there is a possibility that they could be creationists and sincere believers. But when we start getting into specifics, very soon they're going to have to you're going to have to make a choice. They're either going to admit that there are beneficial mutations, there are transitional species, there is valid science behind evolution, and there is no truth at all to creationism, or they're going to have to start lying. And very often they do. Daily. I argue with believers every day. For 25 years, I've been arguing with believers practically every day, and they do. They lie constantly.
Gotcha. Well, I want to thank you for joining me, and
Yeah,
I
my pleasure.
appreciate
Thank
it very
you.
much. And I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I got to announce a few things. But thank you very much.
All right.
And
Have a good
guys,
day, sir.
yeah, you too. Guys, make sure to check out Aron's channel as well. I should have asked him if he has any debates coming up.
I don't at
Okay.
the moment. Yeah. So we're all good.
All righty. Take care, buddy. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that discussion. I've gotten some back channel messages. James, why did you not push back more when Aron took certain jabs or shots at Christianity? So I need to clarify this. So when I bring somebody like Aron on, I don't bring Aron on to do a personal debate. Like, that's not my goal. My goal is not to say, all right, Aron, I need you to come on so you can debate me. But there's two things. One, I like Aron. I really do. He's came on my channel several times where we've had like some detailed debates where he's went back and forth with some Christians on theology. But what I want to do is when I talk to Aron, I want to talk to somebody who is representing a large chunk of the modern day atheist movement so I can understand what they believe and why, and what their views and their perceptions are. Why they disbelieve Christianity. The topic of this video was to focus on Islam, but we did talk about some other things. Now, as far as like giving him time to like explain, or like I got one message that, hey, you let him go on for like 5 minutes. Well, look, he's a guest. I invited him on to give him that opportunity so that he could share that. And because I want you as a believer or as a Christian or someone else who is watching this video to see like the interaction. I also want you to see why they reject things like Islam, or even why he rejects things like Christianity, the religion that I hold. So let me sing this. This was checking the chat too. Brian, good to see you. You, good to see you. Trinity Matrix, good to see you. Let me keep going. Abdu, good to see you. The Sir Clip, good to see you. I appreciate you guys joining me. So when I do these discussions, you guys will notice that I want to make sure that I give the guests plenty of time to talk. Now, if you guys have any thoughts further, or like, hey, you saw something in particular that Aron said that you want me to dig in deeper, then I'll reach back out to him to have him on. He's came on the channel several times before. The bottom line, though, like when I was telling him that I am a Christian and I believe that Jesus Christ is God, I don't believe there's a possibility that I'm wrong. Now, I am open to being proven wrong. I am open to that. To some things, I'm a fallibilist, but it would be very like disingenuous of me to come on here and tell you that I think I could be convinced out of God's existence, because I don't think so. I don't think that anybody has any chance at moving me from that. Not now, not ever, not today, not tomorrow. But if somebody wants to try, they can come on, and I'd love to have that conversation with them. As far as Islam, why do I focus on Islam so much? And why do I contribute to the Seeking Truth channel that focuses on Islam? Because I do think that there are chunks of Islam today that are not good for the world. And I won't say all Muslims. I don't know why I have to keep clarifying that every single time I talk to somebody. No, I don't mean all Muslims, period. No one said all Muslims. I didn't say all Muslims. But there are like Muslims who are extreme. And there are Muslims who will like kill you for leaving Islam, who will kill you for criticizing Islam. There are lots of reasons why even a channel of mine, with the lighter criticism that I've given, that I will not go to a Muslim country because the danger is real. Like, I've had my life threatened. I'm not the only Christian apologist who has had his life threatened for, criticizing Islam and standing up for the gospel of Jesus Christ. But as long as I have a YouTube channel and a presence and a voice, I will continue to do that. Like, this is something that I do because I want to do it, because I feel called to do it, and whether without and financial support or non-financial support, whatever you want to say on that, I will still continue to do this in some degree or step because I'm called to do it. I also want to thank the people who do support me on Patreon. I want to thank the people who are channel members. I want to thank the people who randomly will send me a little bit of money through PayPal to help with like supplies. Like, because of you guys, I now have a better camera where you can see, I guess, my beautiful smiling face in high def resolution. Let me see. Johnny Bickle says, James and Aron together. Yes, we had a conversation. It didn't go in all the areas that I wanted, but he did answer several questions. I got to hear more of his views on rejecting theism. That was appreciated. If you guys have any questions for me, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I'll go another couple of minutes. And then I will be getting off here so I do not annoy my wife. I've been married for like 20 years, guys, as a side note. Like, it's been a long time. Actually, May 22nd will be 20 years of marriage. I do have plans on actually doing my first official former debate at some point or another. I've got a rough opponent in mind. I've got a rough topic. I've got to reach out to him, pick his brain, see if he's willing to do it. I will probably do it on this channel and then have a guest mod. Also, too, a lot of people seem to like when I mod debates on YouTube. That being said, if like you have people who want to debate, reach out to me, and I'm happy to platform you or get you guys going. As far as the criticism of Islam goes, I'm going to continue to criticize Islam. As far as criticizing elements of atheism, I'm going to criticize elements of atheism. As far as criticizing atheists as a whole, like all of you, or Muslims as a whole, as in all Muslims, I just won't do it. I know good atheists and I know good Muslims, and good meaning by the fact that they're not going to do some of this silly stuff that happens online. But until Christ returns, I will be here to try to share the gospel, do my due diligence, do what I can. I want to thank you all for watching, tuning in. I appreciate you very much. And I'm going to get ready to kick the outro because I don't see any more questions in the chat. So as I like to conclude it, and I think I might be ripping off Jerry Springer. Somebody let me know in the comment section. But until next time, guys, take care of each other.
I go hard in the paint, yeah, homie, I'm a saint. Ride on.